This tool's formal name is the rock abrasion tool. And in NASA, you have to have your name shortened to an acronym. So naturally, that makes us the creators of the RAT. I can't tell you how many suggestions I get almost daily for logos. It's a bit of a joke around here and in the space science community that we are building a RAT. One of the biggest issues facing us is the dust skirt. To prevent the dust from coming out, perhaps billowing up, and damaging the other instruments. However, it's a very slow-moving drill and only sends up small wisps of material into the air. We don't like the skirt. It's almost as like you're saying, okay, we want to eject the dust from digging this hole so we can look in, but we're building a cover right around the hole at the same time.
Sorry, your call did not go through.
We're losing money on this. Honeybees chimed in. I hear Steve Condos.
Hi, guys.
Steve!
Yeah.
I heard somebody else on the line. Who else is there?
Squire said he's in another solid car, but if we yell out and we need him, he'll hear us and come back.
Okay.
That's right.
Well, you know what I recommend though? We go through the report first, and then we usually want,
Sure.
and then we do who asks questions, what's remaining, okay?
Cool.
There was a discussion that perhaps got a little persnickety because the PI on the telecon said, no, we have to keep the skirt in place and perform yet a whole nother round of tests.
But I haven't heard anything from Honeybee saying that they were going to do that.
Well, I question why bother doing that?
We don't know what the skirt does at these different angles. We don't know what happens without the skirt at these different angles. This whole thing has been sufficiently counterintuitive to me from the get-go that I'd rather see tests if that's what's going to happen.
Now, wait a minute.
Trying to sell the idea of getting rid of the skirt is going to be a lot easier if you can show that, hey, this thing creates the skirt actually hurts things quite a bit.
Yeah, where does the dust go? How fast is it? What velocity does it fly off at? Which direction is it going to go, etc.? I mean, does it fly off in a sheet, a cone?
Well, that we agree we're going to test completely thoroughly. I was just questioning continual testing with the skirt, that's all. I just didn't quite understand why that should be so extensive. We'll do it. End of discussion, okay? From their perspective, I understand, their instruments, they're worried about them, so we'll do it.
If we have a skirt, it winds up mostly inside the skirt. If you don't have a skirt, then
I'm happy as a clam. However, engineers don't like designing when there are too many unknowns.
That's the baseline, and everything that these guys talked about is consistent with that budget. There's a list of threats that these guys have come to me with, and they've said, okay, the more structure may be late. The PMA contracted vol may increase. The flight software workforce may stretch to the right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I've added all those threats up. They're in the category of everything we can think of that can go wrong. Although Farouz would argue that we've made that claim before and we haven't thought of everything. I submit that based on the data I gave you this week, you can't draw that conclusion.
Cut to the quick. What is the internal processes in Division 35 to make sure that these promise dates are going to be met?
We are holding the subsystems feet to the fire as much as we can.
What part of this gives you gas? Where are you concerned? The problem the presentation presents to the board, they can't make a judgment. If they were to make a judgment, they'd say you're in very, very serious trouble.
Come on. we're not done with this review yet. Okay? I mean, we understand that problem. And if you want us to compress the story into 1 hour, we can do it.
That's not gonna work here. I mean, clearly, he does not shift his need date to the delivery date just as a matter of principle every time it happens. We go through a very long process of trying to push back on the subsystems. The procedures have got to be more self-contained. John's right, we gotta clean it up.
Mechanisms and peripherals, ACS, for example, we are hardware and software constrained big time. And so there are probably some things we can do. You know, there's always something you can do, but a lot of it tends to be non-critical path activities.
We have to go. There's some
Lousy
sites, flat. You know, we've had the whole mission been around follow the water. You know, I mean, that's what we've had that objective right from the start.
Right.
But if we go out into the middle of Elysium, we've lost that. We've lost the main objective, the main sort of theme of the mission. So it's an important issue.
For those of you who haven't been in this process before, and Ray knows well, you don't put a system like this on a major spacecraft like this at the last moment.
There's this tension that exists between the engineering team and the scientists. The engineers want success. And in order to assure success, they have to be very conservative people.
The landing system is very fragile in the presence of sustained winds. If those sustained winds go above a certain level, that the landing system, the airbags and stuff cannot do the job. And so that's another point that says that even if you don't believe the models, you better be wary of what they're saying.
And that actually changes the site selection criteria. That's the bottom line.
That's right.
You're seeing a much greater concern over winds than we even considered going in. But the way we started this was you have to certify the site as safe first.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think
The project will not recommend that we land in an unsafe site, you know, regardless of the science objectives.
How do you define safe then?
That's what we're struggling with.
the struggle part is the uncertainty on your
That's right.
definitions.
Right.
Exactly.
That's exactly right, Rod.
There will always be an engineering judgment component to
Right.
it.
It's not black and white.
You could probably imagine two partially ordered sets. One from the scientific point of view, these are all great, these are in between, and these are not any good, and the same thing from engineering.
Sure.
And you can imagine lining those two up side by side, and then trying to decide whether or not there existed a site that was not unacceptable from either point of view.
And this was done during Pathfinder, and Gentry was there in the very end. And
MER is more complex because there were so many more data sets that you could throw at the problem. We have 2 orbiters that are going around Mars that we can direct to take pictures at target locations. So now it's much more involved. You're actually acquiring the information while you're in the decision-making process, while you're building the spacecraft, while you're worried about what the spacecraft can actually do and what sort of site it can and can't land at.
Excuse me, in terms of distant views and relief, clearly there's an issue here. But what that hematite deposit looks like on a centimeter to 10 centimeter to meter scale, nobody in this room knows. It could be wild, it could be weird, it could be very, very strange looking.
But we also heard from and let me just follow that up. Pathfinder was just as dull and boring from an orbital point of view. And we landed, there were some hills there that people got pretty excited about.
I think the uncertainty on this category, Matt, might rival the uncertainty on the winds.
How could that be? Scientists trying to judge what the public likes. I think you can explain this one to the public.
No way. It takes you 90 days to explain that to the
Oh man, if I explain Pathfinder to the public, I can explain hematite to the public. This is under the public.
No.
Wait, it was under the public category.
But it's a separate issue.
15 seconds.
We have a landing site where that category is not green. I think we have a real problem.
Yes.
So,
But remember, the dynamic range is going to get opened. There may be some that have reds here.
The question I'm having is, what is the meaning of that row? And what is the meaning of good diversity? Because you can have so much diversity that you don't know what the hell you're doing.
Let's go on. Let's leave it and see if it comes to help later.
Put anything in the comments side about what's everything on.
Yeah, who thought this up?
Thank you.